Hey guys, it's Wheeling the Gamer Girl here, and today we are doing a discussion on another Bay City Roller album dedication. So, if you don't know this album, it is actually their fourth studio album, which was released in September of 1976. It was actually their fourth studio album, which actually features their cover album of Yesterday's Hero and one of their songs, Money Honey. Even though Money Honey was actually from their third album, which is Wouldn't You Like It, it is now on their fourth album, Dedication. This album was actually released when the band was actually on the verge for international success. By the time it was actually still Rollermania. Because of this, a lot of girls were screaming out their names, especially to the new boy, Ian Mitchell. And as well as this, they have another cover called I Only Want to Be With You, which is originally sung by Dusty Springfield. I've mentioned this earlier on my previous video, so please go and check it out. I also did a cover version of I Only Want to Be With You 3 years ago, just after Les died. So yeah, that was actually a video that I've actually recorded previously back then. Okay, they also have their lead single Dedication. It was actually initially recorded by Ian Mitchell, but afterwards he left the band within 10 months. It was later re-recorded by lead singer Les McGlynn, who actually provided the lead vocals for this album. And as well as this, founding member Alan Longmire actually was replaced by Ian Mitchell. Because of this, he was actually sacked from the band in 1976, but made a comeback back in 1978, 2 years later, just before Les left the band. And as well as this, due to the recording sessions, there was a switch. Because of this, Ian was actually slotted as the rhythm guitarist. Stuart Woody Wood actually moved from rhythm guitar to bass, and Mitchell also provided the lead vocals for the title track. But when he left the band that year later, there was actually a version of Dedication which features Les McGlynn on vocal. There was also a subsequent pressings of the LP that was also released as a single. But because the album was actually noted for being released in the UK, it actually omitted their cover version of I Only Want to Be With You, which actually made the band have a current successful single internationally. But it actually instead featured Money Honey, which actually served the album's lead single in the UK, while it actually was previously released on the North American only release of Rock and Roll Love Letter, which is actually Alan's last appearance on this cover before he left the band a month later, only to be replaced by Ian Mitchell on April 1st, 1976. So that was actually like a year after Shang-a-Lang, the show actually was aired. And because Rock and Roll Love Letter was actually an album by the Bay City Rollers, it was only released in North America in early 1976 by Arista Records. Because of the release, it actually has two singles, Money Honey and the title track. It actually has achieved commercial success on the US Billboard Hot 100 and later actually included the next album, Dedication, which was released internationally. And as well as this, Rock and Roll Love Letter is also another cover version which the Bay City Rollers sang that song. Originally, it was sung by Tim Moore, second album Behind the Eyes, but it wasn't very successful. This was later covered by the band and became a top 40 hit. As well as this, the B-side is actually Shanghai in Love, which is actually from the album Wouldn't You Like It. It was also released on April of 1976, just after Alan left the band to go on a 2-year hiatus break, before he rejoined the band in 1978 to actually sing their last final album and song together for The Strangers in the Wind, which I mentioned this before. It was a failure. It was definitely a failure, and a lot of people may not be so familiar with this album, Strangers in the Wind, because it was actually a failure and and it was failed to chart in the UK except for Japan, which topped number 5. I've actually mentioned this earlier in my video, so yeah, that was actually one of the reasons why I did it. Okay, so anyways, because the Bay City Rollers version was released as a single in 1978, it was actually successful and it reached number 6 in Canada and number 28 in the US, but the single was not successful in the UK. And because of the weekly charts, we could see the positions right here, which is actually in Australia, Canada, Germany, New Zealand, and US. So the US Billboard Hot 100 actually released their position as 28, while the US Cashbox Top 100 released it as 38. As for the year-end charts, it looks a lot different because actually I do believe after Ian left the band, Pat McGlynn took over for a while, releasing their other album, It's a Game, and that was actually the band's last success. I've mentioned this earlier before, so you can check the video out. And actually putting descriptions is a little hard because of timing purposes, so yeah, that's actually the reason why I don't want to do it. As well as this, in North America, they were actually released on 5 international albums, and 2 were only released in North America: Yesterday's Hero, Dedication, Money Honey, Rock and Roll Love Letter, and another version of the Beach Boys cover, Don't Worry Baby. They were actually released as international single releases. As well as this, Dedication actually peaked number 4 on the national albums chart in the UK, but the sales were actually lower than expected in the territory. They actually sold fewer than 1,000 copies. So actually the album fared to be better in the US, where it did peak at number 26 on the US Billboard 200 album chart. They actually sold for the excess of 500,000 copies, but it's actually the release of the band which is actually considered by Simon Spence, who's actually the author for When the Screaming Stops. And it was actually in the book as well. It's one of the Bay City Rollers books which actually talks about When the Screaming Stops. I don't know the name of it. I forgot. I'm so sorry. This is actually I need to search this one up. And it's actually beginning for a commercial decline on the band. But although, yes, I do believe that they were also popular in 1976. Yes, there were a lot of screaming girls around. So yeah. So this is actually Simon Spence's book, When the Screaming Stopped: The Dark History of the Bay City Rollers. It was actually released in 2016, where it talks about the horrific lives of the Bay City Rollers, how they split up, and how they managed to end up fighting with each other, which is kind of bad. Yeah, that's all I know. And because of the release of the album, the Bay City Rollers actually embarked on a worldwide tour, which engrossed $2 million, and it actually included sales from their merchandise. The album actually had certificate for silver because of the British phonographic industry and the gold by the Recording Industry Association of America. This album was actually popular among Americans and as well as these people outside of America. So yeah. So for the UK edition, they actually do have Let's Pretend, another version by Eric Cartman, who was actually from the Raspberries, You're a Woman, Rock and Roller, Don't Worry Baby, Yesterday's Hero, My Lisa, Money Honey, Rock and Roll Love Letter, Write a Letter, and Dedication. While in the US edition, it actually included Let's Pretend, You're a Woman, Rock and Roller, I Only Want to Be With You, Yesterday's Hero, My Lisa, Don't Worry Baby, Are You Cuckoo, Write a Letter, and Dedication. As well as this, it looks similar to the US edition CD, but they changed some of the songs as well. So we got the personal right here. So yes, we still have Les on the lead and backing vocals. We got Eric Faulkner also on the lead guitar. We got Ian Mitchell, who is on the rhythm guitar. Woody actually changed from guitar to being the bass. And Derek is still on the drums, as noticed. We do have the weekly charts and also the year-end charts as well. And this is actually their certifications where they actually released. In the UK, it's actually silver, while in the US, it's gold. And as well as this, they really did sell a lot at the time for their international popularity. So yeah, I think this album is actually really good. And I do believe that's actually, like way better than expected. So yeah, that's actually, it for now. So actually, this is actually the discussion on dedication and album from the Vice City Rollers. So go ahead and listen to it because they actually have one cover version of I Only Wanna Be With You. I've heard of this one before, actually. It was really nice. And actually, they do have a lot of songs from the Vice City Rollers. So if you wanna go and listen to it, go ahead. It's fine. It's okay. I'm not forcing anyone to do it. So it's totally fine. Anyways, that's all for now, and this is me. Hey guys, it's Wheeling the Gamer Girl here, and today we're actually going to do a short album discussion on It's a Game. So actually, this album is released as the 7th and 6th studio album in 1977, and it's actually supported as a lead single for It's a Game in the UK, while as You Make Me Believe in Magic was actually released as a lead single from the album in North America. But elsewhere, You Make Me Believe in Magic was actually released from the album's second official single release. So this is actually their cover album right here. It looks like it's like in space, there's some checkers, and also there were some kings, queens. I'm not too sure what is this one, but it's actually a constellation right here. But they still have the tartan lettering right here for the album. So it's actually released in July of 1977. They started recording it maybe early 1977. And as well as this album actually received moderate commercial success internationally. Because of this, it actually reached number 1 in Japan, and it actually reached the top 20 in Australia, Canada, and the UK, as well as the top 30 on the Billboard 200 in the US. But It's a Game is actually the 5th original studio album that was actually produced by Harry Maslin, fresh from the success with singer David Bowie. But despite them receiving the gold album certification in the US, the group's popularity had waned because of their initial burst of fame, and because of the lineup changes that could see in the diminishing success. Guitarist Ian Mitchell went back to Ireland to rejoin the band Rosetta Stone, and because of this, Pat McGlynn actually toured with them until he left the band less than a year later. And as well as this, McGlynn is also presented in the It's a Game music video for the title track, indicating he is at least somewhere because of his presence on the album. Because of McGlynn's departure, the band would actually perform into a 4-piece band comprising of Derek Longmire, Eric Faulkner, Les McEwen, and Stuart Woody Wood. And because they would actually do this until maybe in early of 1978, Alan Longmire, Derek's brother, actually rejoined the fold in 1978, releasing their last album, Strangers in the Wind, which is actually the group's 6th original album. And because of this album never received any certifications because their initial popularity burst of fame actually waned. And because the trends are actually changing, Roller Mania was actually over. And because of this, by 1978, all of them, including the tartan outfits, were gone. And because their album was actually going to be released the later next year, which is Strangers in the Wind, Les would actually leave the band after the album was released. And I've noticed the reason why actually Les left the band is because during a concert tour in Japan, he was actually going a bit crazy. I'm not just trying to be rude, but I know this story because I've seen this one on the nostalgia page, that he actually did do really horrible things to his bandmates. And I do believe the youngest member, Stuart Woody Wood, actually did kick him off from the stage. Yeah, it was very, very frightening. I don't know why he did it, but you know, with him and Woody, I think it's a rocky relationship ever since, the decline of their popularity. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. I'm so sorry. Just try to correct me if I'm right, because I don't want to go into the next album, Strangers in the Wind. But please do note, I am actually excluding this album for, my discussions, because we're only going to focus on the popular Bay City Roller albums, which only received certifications in the UK and the US. And because of this, in the US track, You Make Me Believe in Magic was actually released as a lead single that reached the number 10 on the Hot 100 Billboard in August of 1977. But outside the US, It's a Game, which was originally released as a single by the British group String Driven King in 1973, was the first single off, but it was very unsuccessful. The top 10 status actually achieved in Australia, Austria, Germany, Ireland, Switzerland, and also reaching number 21 in New Zealand and also the UK. In the UK, It's a Game, it's actually the 12th Bay City Rollers chart hit that actually was the first single for the 12 to peak below the top 10. You Make Me Believe in Magic was actually a song which is more popular among people, and especially because the popularity was declining and the trends were changing, a lot of people would still listen to this song till this day. And as well as this, it was also released as a second single in the territories. Because of this, It's a Game actually has been a hit. You Make Me Believe in Magic was actually proved significantly less popular than the preceding single. The relevant peaks for this song was in Australia, Germany, New Zealand, and the UK, with no chart placing in Austria, Ireland, and Switzerland. You Make Me Believe in Magic, which is a song from the Bay City Rollers, actually did mark their final UK appearance. Another track off, which is a song called The Way I Feel Tonight, was also issued as a second single in the US, where it actually marked the Bay City Rollers' final Hot 100 appearance that peaked to number 24 outside the US. The Way I Feel Tonight was also a third single off, which only charted in Australia and New Zealand. There was also another CD with 3 bonus tracks in 2007. Are You Cuckoo? Dedication by the version that Les McEwen sing. I've mentioned this earlier for my dedication album discussion, and The Way I Feel Tonight. It was actually a single version. There was also another review from the New York Daily News. It's a Game, it's a very terrific album. However, there are some viewers that claim to have 2.5 stars. But overall, it's actually uneven for casual listeners. But that the Bay City Rollers fans will find that no debut that will actually be really easy to listen. So for the track listening, there are 2 versions, and one is It's a Game by Chris Adams. Sorry. My throat is really bad. It's very dry. I'm sorry. Please forgive me if my throat is really dry. So sorry about it. You Make Me Believe in Magic, Don't Let the Music Die, Love Power, and The Way I Feel Tonight. For side 2, they also have Love Fever, Sweet Virginia, Inside a Broken Dream, Dance, 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 and Rebel Rebel, which is also a cover version. They covered this one from David Bowie's Rebel Rebel. It was actually included right here. So the personnel actually still leads the same, except Stuart Woody Wood is also on the bass guitar as well. And as well as this, Pat McGlynn is still here, but he was on the rhythm guitar for It's a Game. So yeah, that's actually what happened. So we got the charts right here. The charts don't actually look that bad, but I do believe it's actually their final album to have the gold certification. I don't really think Strangers in the Wind or Elevator, Voxx, and Ricochet actually do have it, and because of this, I'm sure that the song The Pie, When I Say I Love You, was actually included in the Strangers of the Wind album. And because of this, back in 1978, when the Rollers actually had like the most successful lineup with the bassist and also the oldest founding member, aka Derek's brother, Alan Longmire, he actually did rejoin the band, and I do believe that these songs from It's a Game, along with the other albums, some of the songs were actually included. Not all of them, but what I was gonna say is that yes, some of them were actually also included in the Croft Superstar Hour. And because of this, some of them were actually included. I'm really that sure it's actually like little less successful, but it's still successful, unlike, some of the albums which actually includes like the Strangers in the Wind album, which the Classic Five actually released their last album before Les left the band. And because of this, they changed their name to the Rollers, and they also added the Rabbit frontman Duncan Foy. I've actually mentioned this before because they actually did hire Duncan Foy to replace their longtime lead singer Les McEwen. They tried it with a four-piece band, but there was no success for 1979 Elevator. As Duncan, who was the frontman, he actually continued to make two more albums, Voxx, Ricochet, and Elevator, until 1981, where the Rollers actually began to stop performing their music until 1982, when Les, Ian, and Pat returned to the Japan reunion tour. And yes, these kinds of songs were sung here, except for Strangers in the Wind, Elevator, Voxx, and Ricochet. These ones are actually included with Duncan Foy, if you don't know what I seriously mean. Okay? Look, I'm not just trying to say that I may not know about the Rollers. They actually just changed their name. I'm so sorry if you guys don't know what I'm actually talking about. That I do apologize if I'm saying it wrongly, And actually, because of this, yeah, it started to really go downhill. And, sometimes you have to accept the fact is that once, popularity declines, the trends will change all the time. And, sometimes there will be lineup changes no matter what. We all have to accept the fact that, just because the late frontman of the Bi-City Rollers is no longer with us, or, back in the late 70s when he was actually replaced by the Rabbit frontman Duncan Foy, that still doesn't mean that he's forgotten. He'll still be in our hearts. And because of this, I'm not trying to say that I don't really like Duncan Foy, in my opinion. I just think that, a lot of people are actually just trying to say and comment to say that it's not the same without Les, I do believe that way. And, sometimes when they post the pictures on Facebook, they would actually put like, some of the songs that Les sang with Duncan Foy. I don't actually know why they did it or something, but just trying to ignore the mistake. And as well as this, yes, I've noticed that a lot of people were complaining because they actually think that the user did put the picture of Duncan Foy with Les. Like, I'm serious, why? Why did they do that? And actually, because of the release of Ricochet, Foy actually left the Rollers in 1981. And because of this, the later year, back in 1982, Les returned along with Ian and Pat, because I noticed that Ian was actually here in the band as well. I think he was also performing from these 5 albums, excluding the ones right here. And as well as this, I think like Pat McGlynn as well, he was also here. I'm not just trying to be rude, I'm not trying to, be disrespectful on what Foy has done, but I really do dedicate his work And actually, because I haven't heard of the roller songs before, and I do believe that, sometimes when a song from It's a Game was actually replaced with Foray, I do believe that sometimes, what were they even thinking? What do they even want? Just remember this. We all make mistakes sometimes, but you need to really check your sources out. And because of this, sometimes they will just think like, why is Foray in here? Why is he actually here on the Facebook post saying that, he really sang Bye Bye Baby, Saturday Night, Once Upon a Star, or any other songs that he sang? Well, it was supposed to be Les who actually sang, so I would just say that people are saying that please just give like Les the opportunity, when I seriously mean. I'm not trying to be rude, but I think this actually happened in Facebook, and I'm not trying to become, very, very sensitive. I noticed that sometimes users don't really check out their facts, and this thing actually does happen, when you're writing something. So please do remember this. Always check your facts. If you don't know anything, please check Wikipedia. It's always there to help you, instead of like people just trying to post irrelevant pictures of what I seriously mean. Because sometimes I do see this one like Bye Bye Baby. I don't actually see like the Fat Five, but instead I actually do see the Rollers, including Duncan Foy. I've been getting this kind of thing a lot, to say please post the right picture, but unfortunately it still doesn't work within the user. So I think that's the reason why they don't want to listen, so just try to ignore it. I'm not trying to be rude, but sometimes this thing actually happens on Facebook where somebody posts the wrong picture. Well, it's supposed to be the singer, not the other person. So yeah. Anyways, I think that's all for now for my discussion. I'm really sorry. As planned, I'm so sorry. I wanted to do a short video, but I think I talked too long. My throat's getting really dry soon. I'm gonna sign off now. So if you do have any questions on this album, please do let me know, and I'll see you next time. Bye.